Hey guys, and welcome to a very special episode of my podcast. A few episodes ago, specifically episode 50, I went over the Yamaha DX7 and why it was such a legendary instrument. And that became my most successful video so far. I received a ton of great comments. If you commented, shared some information, some knowledge, just your thoughts in general, thank you so much. Super appreciated, and you were heard. Because of this, I decided to go further down the rabbit hole. So to do this, I decided to go straight to the source. I reached out to Mr. John Chowning, professor at Stanford University and discoverer of FM synthesis, the revolutionary technology behind the Yamaha DX7.
I'd like to be referred as Herr Dr. John Chowning. No, I'm John.
John?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about how you started off your career.
Well, actually, I began as a child as a violinist. And then, because I could read music, they had me play cymbals in the high school band. So when I was about 11, from cymbals, I learned rudimentary drumming. The violin I kept up through college. I went into the Navy after high school during the Korean War as a drummer and in one of the fleet jazz bands. There were a lot of musicians, professional musicians of the day, like Julian Cannonball Adderley. And we all went to the same Navy music school. So those guys were teachers.
Yeah.
And so it was a very high level, and I, although I was a very good rudimentary drummer, I was not so skilled at jazz drumming. So I had to learn quickly to keep up with the quality of the other band members in the 18-piece band.
Trial by fire, I've been there.
Yeah, and I practiced hard.
After his military service, John attended the Wittenberg University and then went to Paris, France, where he studied music composition with the legendary French music teacher and conductor Nadia Boulanger, who taught many of the leading composers and musicians of the 20th century, including Joe Raposo, who John briefly encountered there.
Joe Raposo did the music for Sesame Street, all the famous tunes that we all know and love.
Somebody come and play today.
So I mentioned violin because that turns out to be important in the story of discovery of FM. Studying in Paris, I heard of a lot of electronic music. These were early pieces that were done in 4 channels. And of course, it was all analog synthesis at that time. But they were really striking, and I thought, someday I would like to write music for loudspeakers, because in those days, all the music that was being recorded was music that was intended to be performed. The idea of writing music intended to be played on loudspeakers was a very attractive idea. So that was kind of a lingering dream of mine. And after studying with Paris, I came to Stanford and was disappointed to learn that they had no facilities nor interest in electronic music.
That's actually pretty wild that Stanford University did not have any interest in electronic music. If any of you are familiar with Stanford's music program, then you might also know that they are one of the world leaders in computer music and research. And it all started because one day John had an interaction with a percussionist.
The percussionist, who was a biologist by training, knew of my interest because during these breaks, I would tell her about my experience in Paris. One day she came in and handed me an article from Science. And in this article by Max Matthews, the digital computer as a musical instrument. And I put it in my coat pocket, and a couple weeks later read it, understood very little, but there was something about it that I understood, the abstraction, the idea of a computer and a digital analog converter and loudspeaker. I realized that if I could learn to program a computer, I would not have to know all about the wires and plugs of the big analog studios that were current in the day, like in Cologne and Milano with Luciano Berio. That was very important. So I took a course in programming and learned to program sufficiently well that I convinced myself that I could do it. So then I got started. And I started working on spatialization, which had been my dream.
Okay, so what is spatialization? Spatialization is the concept that the way sound is perceived changes depending on its position in 3D space, its environment, and distance relative to the listener. The information received by the listener in the form of tone, timbre, frequency, reverberation, and several other factors can be used to identify the sound being produced. Let's say you're in a moving car and you hear an ambulance siren coming towards you. The sound it makes changes as it gets nearer to you. This is called the Doppler effect. It's a real-world example of how we perceive sound in space, because in this case, our life may depend on knowing how fast the ambulance is approaching and too quickly step back off of the street if it is very close. But we also perceive its loudness. So if the siren is very soft, then we know it's far away, and therefore less cautious than if it was very loud. And we need not worry if it's coming from the right, whereas in the UK, you better pay attention or you're going to get hit. To sum up the ambulance, or for that matter, any source of sound, it will have basic spatial parameters: distance, near or far, angle or azimuth, right, left, front or back, height, high or low, and velocity if the sound is moving, or that would be the Doppler effect. In sound synthesis and sampling, spatialization is the process of applying the spatial parameters to a sound source. And this is how John found his path towards discovering FM synthesis. In applying spatial parameters to synthesize sounds, he searched for sounds that had internal dynamism or change of sound quality through time. He began with vibrato and then very fast and deep vibrato, which finally led to the theory and application of FM synthesis.
We needed a signal to distinguish itself from the reverberant signal. And so vibrato was a candidate because our ear's auditory system is much more sensitive to small changes in pitch than they are to loudness. So I started wiggling these two oscillators from Music 4, these unit generators. So with two oscillators with deeper and deeper vibrato and faster deviation, I realized that at some point I was no longer listening in the time domain, that is pitch changing through time, but I was hearing changes in timbre, so frequency domain. It appeared to me to be chaotic, or not chaotic, but when I transposed it, it was well behaved. And so I realized it was discovery, and an engineer then helped me understand the math that describes it from a radio engineering text. That was how it was discovered. Yamaha bought the patent, took options on the patent, and over a period of 8 years until the GS1 and 10 years until the DX7, they worked really hard. About 100 really good engineers. They're the ones who are responsible for the DX7. So there were lots of little things that I knew about that I, of course, gave to them because it was in our interest to have them succeed. While my participation in helping them over those years was important, they're the ones who really are responsible for the DX7. But I want everybody to understand that. I say it was the democratization of computer music.
I love
Because,
that.
yeah, with the DX7 and a small computer like an Atari or one of the early Macs, your father, you say, realized it was difficult to program.
My dad, he
Yeah,
gutted it and he worked
right.
on the motherboards, and
Yeah.
it's always something impressive to watch.
Why it was so important is because it was digital. Therefore, unlike analog synthesizers, which you could never guarantee that they would sound the same from day to day, the DX7 came with a cartridge, which would allow people to store voices. And then with this little cartridge, they could get on a plane and go to Singapore and share with their friends there. And then people would make modifications, it would come back, and it would always be faithfully as it was programmed. And that was incredibly important because it allowed people to build on other people's work with the surety that what they were doing was a little bit different than what they got. And that's how most people programmed it. Very few started with, a blank slate. Almost everyone modified the factory voices and came up with their own surprising changes, like the timpani surprised me. I couldn't figure out how anyone ever did that.
How do you feel about current electronic music? Is there anything that impresses you, or are you not impressed?
Well, I mean, it's a larger category. That is the music that people do, say, at Stanford and in the, let's say, academic music world, has overlapped with the popular electronic music world because we use the same tools. Like one of the common platforms is Max MSP. All these people are using the same tools. So there's a lot of cross influence, which I think is very healthy. I don't keep track of everything that's going on because, look, I'm 88 and I want to do my own work.
Yeah,
Work,
I
work.
completely agree with that. Is there something that you would like to let the synth community know?
There are two worlds, right?
Mhm.
There's the people who sample, the people who synthesize. Well, there's a third world, people who do both. The greatest surprise comes with synthesis. The platform that produces the greatest surprise is the FM platform because it's a very small parameter space with a huge universe of possible outcomes because it's nonlinear. So a small change in one parameter, like changing the ratio of the carrier to the modulating frequency, maybe just be the difference of 0.5, can produce tones that you never imagined would occur. It's full of surprises, and that's the wonder that I have always found so important in my world of synthesis and composition, and that's what I use still. I don't use anything but FM, but I've probably learned the most in creating a synthesized singing voice that were surprisingly good, and I learned an incredible amount about perception and how to use FM. There's lots of information about FM synthesis and, of course, online. One good source, I think, is probably C-Sound, which is an open source Berkeley School of Music. It's the closest to Max's original conception. So one of the wonders in today is that some kids somewhere in the world can find a used computer, 10 years old even, can go online and nothing but a pair of headphones and internet and perseverance with open source tutorials can do wondrous things. And that's important. That the idea, I think, that some kid in Africa could do that because they're all linked.
One thing that I like to make the focal point of my page is that it's just sonic exploration. And I think that what drives that is curiosity. What role has curiosity played in in your life?
Well, if without curiosity, there's no motion. In every human endeavor, curiosity is the driver.
Mm,
What's around the next corner?
yeah.
What happens if I make this change to a parameter? Curiosity drives everything from discoveries of the Americas. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's over the horizon?
Hmm.
So
When I was reading articles about you, I just felt like you just had such a fixation with curiosity, and that just seemed like a driving
yeah,
goal. Just wanted to touch on that topic.
absolutely.
With the way that technology has made so many monumental changes, how would you describe the way that young adults have evolved in their approach to music and sound design?
I watch the students at Sanford, and they're always sharing. See, that's the wonderful thing about places where people can congregate. And I think if I were in the education business, I would create opportunities for people to get together, like in clubs or something, where they are working side by side on a regular basis. Maybe say once a week, you get 10 or 20 people in a classroom, and we're going to all take some idea and work on it, or no idea at all as a starter, but to work on stuff, but to listen to what one another is doing. That's how we learn, and it's inspiring,
Yeah.
and it puts people in connection with one another.
In that vein, what advice do you have for young musicians, or just any musicians who are just, trying to advance?
Follow your passions and do the things that you like. Don't do it for others, because then you'll know there's at least one person on this earth who likes what you do. I'm sure there's someone else who likes the next piece that I'll do besides me. But first of all, I have to like it. I have to like what I've done, and with the assumption that there'll be other people who also will like what I've done. And that's important, because I don't do this just to interest me, although that's really fun part of doing it for my own composition. I just love to work on the problem. But also I want it to be heard, because they're ideas that had not been heard before. I want other people to hear them.
I always believe that, if our fingerprints are so unique that nobody else has our fingerprints, then, our own experiences that are poured into our art are going to be unique in our own, personal expression. And, like my thing is, I just feel so strongly that you need to be opinionated, know what you like, know what you don't like, and then pour all of who you are into what you're creating. And,
That's well
that's
stated, Amy.
beyond what you can't compare that to anybody else, and
Right.
you shouldn't compare it to
Right.
anybody else. Thank you so much. This
You're
is
welcome.
honestly a dream come true. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Amy, for doing your homework.
Yeah.
That makes for a good interview.
Whew. So that interview was a dream come true. And seriously, I was overwhelmed and blown away by just how amazing it was to just talk with with John. He doesn't want me to call him Mr. Chowning, but to talk with John. Man, I have no words to really explain how special that was, and how blessed I truly feel that he took the time to chat with me about FM synthesis and spatialization and every other thing that we covered. Man, what a treasure. So if you liked this video, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. This experience made me think, who else can I interview? So follow me if you want to know who I'm going to be interviewing next. In the spirit of what John would say, keep experimenting, keep listening, keep playing, keep improving, keep discovering. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I know I will.